Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. You guys hear me?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, Lewis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks. Let's just wait a minute, Sabi, before we get started. Okay. So welcome everyone to the second week of this basic Python training with Mr. Sabi. Let's see. We have 40 plus Sabi. I think we can get started.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So are you able to view my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. So far we covered the sequential part of it, like we covered about the strings, lists, tuples, sets, dictionaries. And now today we will start with the conditional statements. So when we talk about conditional statement is it's basically we do a flow execution to our command, right? So for example, when a user is asked to type a password, right, and then it checks whether the password is correct or not, and then it gives you a prompt. For example, you type a password, and in that password it says that whether you are typing a correct one or wrong one. So that is what we can do using a use case, using an if else statement, or you can say a condition, right? So in the condition statement, basically it's provide a decision making, whether that decision making is correct or that decision making is not correct. What could be the probability of it, right? So in that, whether we will have if statement, we can also have if else statement. So if it is not true, then we'll have else. It will check multiple conditions in that. We'll also have elif statements. So if we have more than two, so we can go ahead with using elif. And then we have something called as nested if else. So within if statement, we can have again a if else statement. That is what we can say that nested, and then we'll have elif ladder, right? So if statement straightforward, we will have we give a condition. If something X is true, then it will print. Then we'll have else statement as well. With else, we'll have else, right? Let's look what I'm talking about. So for example, if a value A equals to 9, so if I'll have A as a variable, and now I want to check whether this A is 9 or something else, right? So I will have a conditional statement to it. If A equals to 10, and then it will say that print true. I can say that if A is not true, then print false, right? So in this statement, we have a variable, and in order to evaluate this variable, we can have, if we use basically two conditions. Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, hello.
You're not sharing something, or I don't see.
Just
You can-
rejoin the meeting.
Okay.
That should be fixed. Yep.
Shall we wait to rejoin him or?
You can continue, Sabi.
Okay. So we have a variable, and in that variable, for example, that variable, we want to check something, right? And how we can check that in a conditional statement is, first thing we need to check whether it is correct or not. Means if that value is correct, if that value match with this or not. If this value will match, if will be executed. If this value is not match, then what happened is it goes to the second one, which is the else statement. And then it will see that if this is not there, then we can print false. So in this statement, what we are doing is if else statement. For example, we will have a syntax, for example, and in that we are giving a statement and we are checking that whether that statement is correct, whether the statement is true or not. If that statement is true, whatever is condition given to if, it will get printed. If the statement is not correct, then it will check in the else part of it. If something we have here, then it will check, or if we don't, then direct the opposite value of if will be printed over here. For example, the same thing. If a equals to 10, then true, else false. This also we can match in multiple statements. When we talk about multiple statements, if I say that if a equals to 10, print, let's say not correct. Then we can say that we will have a multiple statement of it. We can want to check further. If a is less than 10, print correct. So either we can do this one, or we will also have, whenever we have this is a two statement variable, right? Two statement conditional statement that we are checking to our variable. Whenever we want to do this one, we also can do else statement here as well. And else says that retry, for example. So now we will have whenever we will have multiple statement in order to check, then we will use elif. Earlier we were having two, so that we are using if else. Now we need to check multiple times, so we can go ahead and check the other statements as well. So we can have multiple times elif in this. So we can check everything. For example, now I'll put as a is 100. And if I type that if statement, sorry, my keyboard is, yeah. And if I say that a is now equals to 99, right? And then I'll say that print correct. It might be correct or it might be wrong. I'll need to give some statement to it, right? Whether it wants to. So for example, if none of the statements are correct and I don't have else statement in this, so no output in this case, will not get any kind of output, right? So it needs to match this condition. For example, you are typing a password and that password is not correct till the time it will match. If it is not matched, then nothing will be happened. Or you can say that if I'll give us else statement over here and say that this password is not correct, you need to try after 5 minutes. So you will get a print for that. So this is how the if statement will be evaluated. For example, I have a list and list to test, for example, a variable. And in that list to test, I will have something, let's say 1, 2, 3 values, numbers. And if I say that if list to test, then print the list. So what would happen? So if list to test means we don't give anything in this, so that it will only just check the variable, and then based on this variable, it will passing this one as this list, right? So for example, if I will say if length, now I'm giving some value to it. List to test is not equals to 0. OK. Then print this list. So now it will print this list because it says that the length of this list is not equals to 0. Then print it. For example, if I have this list as 0, there is nothing inside it, a blank list. So in that case, what will happen in that case? It will not print the statement, right? So list to test. Let's say I have a blank list. I don't have anything. And then if length of is not equals to 0, print the list. So now it will not give anything because it checks the parameter and checks the value. And based on this value, the result of this comes as true. That's the reason it is printing this one. The result of this is coming as false. That's the reason it is not executing this line. So every time, whenever if condition, if else statement that we are checking, it should check the value, and the value should be in either it will give us a true or a false, a Boolean value. If it is true or false, then only it will execute the line which is indented with inside the if statement. So there are some comparison operators that we use in case of if else statement, right? So greater than. So what we are saying, greater than 5 is greater than 6, whether or not. So it's giving us false. So if I say 5 is greater than 2, I'll get true. So these are all the operators that we are using. For example, if I say 5 is equals to 2 or not, then it will give us false. But I cannot say that 5 equals to 2. I cannot say that. Python will not able to interpret this one. So in order to check whether it is equals to, that means whether the statement is equals to is checking that the value. If you want to say that not equals to, then we need to give this value. Whether this 5 is not equals to 2, yes, it is true. 5 is less than equals to 10. It will give us value true, right? 5 is greater than equals to 5. It will give us true, means it is doing a OR operation in this, either this or this. It is doing an OR operation, not the AND operation. Any questions? So we can also check, for example, we will say that fast in fast Ethernet. So it checks that whether the fast is there inside the fast Ethernet or not, and the operator is in. Is checking that operator in allows to check the presence of this element within the string or not. So this is the operator again we are using in. So for example, if I say VLAN equals to 10 20, 30, 40. So what it is doing, if I check that 10 in VLAN, then it will say that this 10 is there in your VLAN list. So 10 in operator, it is checking the presence of 10 within this VLAN. If I say that 50 in VLAN, then it will not, then it will check and then it will give you a false statement, Boolean value as false. So whenever we are doing any kind of if else statement is checking the value and giving us a Boolean to it. And then if it is true, then it will print this value. If it is not, it will not, never. Okay, any questions?
Question, Sabi. So for any of these comparisons you're doing there, you didn't even have to kind of create the variable, right? So the comparison goes straight to the values that you're comparing without having to create any variables.
Yes, it will just check this value. I'm giving a comparison operator in this in, so it will check where I'm comparing with whom I'm comparing with. 10 in VLAN. If I say that 10 in 20, nothing will give us because we don't define anything. Nothing, we don't define anything as 20. If I say that 10 in, let's say X, so X is not defined. So it will only check, the operator will only check if anything is defined in any of the variables.
Okay.
Right. So if I check, for example, I have two statements in this, right? For example, a VLAN, this is a VLAN variable. And in this VLAN variable, I would say 10 in VLAN. And I also want to check 20 also, how I can do that. And I will say 20 in VLAN. Right. So it is saying, it is giving us that 10 in VLAN and 20 in VLAN. For example, if I say 60 in VLAN, as I'm using in operator as well as I'm using AND operation. Whenever I'm using AND operation, the AND operation should match both the statements. So that's the reason it is giving us false. So same thing if I do with OR. So it will give us true. So either of this is true, then it is true. So for AND, both should be true, then only it will give us true. Similar to line number 28. If I'm using OR, it will check whether this one is correct or this one is true. Anything is true is fine as true. So true or false give us true. True or true give us true. False or false will give us false. Similarly, in the AND, true and true will give us true and false will give us false. True. That's it. Or else rest all are everything is false. This is how the and the OR operator works with the conditional statements. For example, I have a string. So strings say string 1 and string 2. Right, string 1 and string 2, what it is giving. So it is giving the last value. So whenever we are using operators and we are just specifying what is to print something, so it always take the last option. So if I have string 1 and string 2 and string 3. So it will give us string 3, the last one. Always the case. So for example, if I have one blank operator with this, and I'll say that blank list, and I'll say string. So it will give us the first one. Anyone can tell what is the reason for this? So the reason here is if both the operators are true, so it will give you the value. If all the operators are true in the AND statement, it gives you the value. If one of the operator is false, the expression will always be the first value. For example, if I have and string, so it will give us the first value because first one we don't have anything. So similarly, if I do with OR, so it will give a string, the second value, because anything is true, which it will print the value. Anything is true, so it will print the last value of it. So if I do this and this, it as it is, because and wants everything to be true. If it is not, if the condition is not met, then it will print the first value. Or any statement should be true, that is fine, and then it will print the value to it. This is the difference when we are checking based on and or operator. So whenever we are using operator or, so it will give us the value which is true only. Whenever we are using and operation, it's tell that it should be true, then only I will print the value. If it is not, then the first character of it or first string to it, whether it's a blank string, whether it is a blank list, whatever. For example, if I do this reverse and this, it will print the first one. OK, this is a difference between and this is a difference between or. OK. Any questions? Anyone, any questions?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Question.
Go ahead, Eric.
So your last example, there is square bracket and basically nothing, right?
Yeah.
That's not even space, right? It's just two single quotes. So
Yeah,
why it was giving you the square bracket instead of the other one?
It's a blank string, it's a blank list. Nothing is there inside the string, nothing is there. So we are comparing list with a string. When we are comparing list to the string, both should be true, then only it will print, or else it will print the first value, right? When you are comparing strings to strings, then it is giving us a true statement, true results. So that's the reason it is printing it. So we are having this one, line number 33. We have a blank, we are having a blank string. We are having a blank empty list, and we are having a string, right? So this statement is what? It accepting that everything should be true, then only I'll print the value, right? It is not. So that's the reason it is printing this one. Similarly, if you'll go to line number 35, either of the statements should be true. It is true, yes. So it is printing the strings in that.
In that case, it's not comparing the value itself. Yes. It's comparing the type of that value, right?
Right, because it is or. So or means either of the string is correct. Either it is correct, it's giving us true, right? For example, this one. 10 in VLAN, 60 in VLAN. So 60 was not there. So 10 was there. So it is printing as true. Same thing, this one, line number 35. So if anything, when this or statement is true, it will print the true value. If both the things should be true, then only it is printing this value. If nothing is true, only one statement is true over in this, so it is printing the first one.
So the last, oh sorry, yeah. So the last expression, why is the list and the string, is that not supposed to be false because you are using?
It is a false. It's a false. That's the reason it is printing the first one. See. Whenever an AND statement you are comparing, if it is true, then only it will print the last value, right? It does not say that you need to print it true over here. So string 1 and string 2, both statements are true. That's the reason it is printing the last one. If none of the statement is true, so what it does, it print the first value. This is the operator of AND is. It is not like comparing. We are not providing anything to compare it over here. We are providing a variable, and based on the variable, or we are providing a data type, different data type, and then it is comparing with that. Okay.
So I would like to reiterate my question. So if you will to do the string 1 and just double quotes, you kept on mentioning that the
String
first
1,
one would be printed.
String 1 and
just nothing.
double quotes.
Basically, yeah.
So it will print the first one. Nothing
No,
is
the
there.
first one is a string.
Yeah. So it is false. That's the reason it is giving nothing, empty.
Yeah, but you said it will print the first one. The first one is a string, not
the value. I'm not talking about we are trying anything on the value part of it. We are talking about, this is not the first part. This is basically the significance of the empty part of it. There is nothing. It's false, right? It does not mean that it will print string, right? For example, if I do or, so if it is or, if anything is true, then only it will print the value. If it is false, right? If it is false, that means it will print the empty part of it, right? Got the point?
Yeah. Well, the thing confused me is you kept on mentioning the first one, and I thought the first one is what is inside the, the string, basically, or something.
Okay, so you mean to say that the first value? No, not the first value.
No. I said I was confused. Now you explain it, so it's okay.
Okay. Any other questions? You got the clarity of or and operator, right? Anyone, any questions? Okay. So for example, we want to type a password, right? So password equals to, I will ask the user to do the input, right? Input, and then I'll ask to enter the password. Enter the password. So user will enter the password, for example, lab123. So lab123 is the password. I ask the user to input it, and then I will check whether the password met this specific requirement or not. For example, length of the password. I'll check that password is less than, let's say, 8. So it will say that print too short. So then I'll say that elif if the username in password, right? If the username and password is same, or any characters that is there in the username and password, then you need to specify that password contains username, change the password, right? Sometimes you also get that whenever you are typing anything, whenever you are creating any password, right? So this statement is what is telling that whenever we are creating any password in any of, like in Gmail or in anywhere, whenever password, so everything is done through a if else statement. everything is checked based on the if-else statement, like use this character, number of how many number of characters should be, your username should not be same as your password and all. So this if-else statement you can correlate with a statement or when you are doing any kind of setting up any kind of password. OK, so another way to write if-else statement in a single line. OK, so for example, if s equals to 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is a variable which contains the list. So we'll say that result. If I'll say true, if it is true, if length of s. So if length of s is greater than 5. Else it will give us false. Right. So if I do result, so it will say give me false. So in a same one line, I specify basically the if-else statement. First thing, the syntax is first thing you need to type the result. And based on the result, we will have an if statement. If this statement is true, then type this one. Else, type this value. So this is the way you can write it in a single line whenever you are writing your code. Once you know how to write the code in this way, you will go ahead and write in a single line as well. Right. So this is what referred to as a ternary expression while using if-else statement. This is a extended form of if-else statement, you can say, right? So what check that we want to perform in if we are doing that? What is the print statement that we are mentioned over here? We are putting at the beginning of it, and then the else statement, and what is the value that you want to print. So in a single line, you'll get the entire if-else statement.
And a good question, Seb. And the same applies for all the other
yes,
elif or whatever I want to use there.
Yes.
OK.
Means this is, you can say that this is the advanced form of it. Once you have this one, for example, you want to write your code not to extended one, you want to write it as small as possible. So you will use this method to write it. Similarly, we can write for statement, for loops, we can write able to write while loops, everything in a single line. OK. Anyone, any questions so far? Any questions? OK. So this is what about the conditional statement that we will have? So we are checking, check based on what is there inside in there or not. We can do multiple things. We can do, for example, we can say that, and we can use multiple and operators to check in a single statement as well. We can use or operators to check multiple things in a single line as well, right? And these are all the checks that we can give: equals to, not equals to, less than equals to, greater than equals to. These are all the values. And then in fast Ethernet, VLAN 10 in VLAN. Similarly, we can create a if-else statement. So next is for loops. OK, so for example, we have a list. For a list is, for example, X. So X equals to, for example, we'll have A, we want to have B, we want to have C. How to access these? We know that how we can access each of them, right? We can access like doing a indexing, and then we can do it, right? X of 1 is what it will give us B. Like X of 0, it will give us A. like this. But I want to access each and every item from it, right? How I can do that? How I can open this list and expand this one and print each and every value to it. I have a list ABC, right? Using indexing, I can access each of the value that is needed. For example, you will have a log file. From the log file, you get the IP address, and that IP address is in the form of list. Now you want to access each and every IP address. How you can access each and every IP address in a list? To do this, we can use this while using a for loop. We can run a loop in this, and then based on this index 0, it will print this one. Index of 1, it will print this one. Index of 2, it will print this one. One after another loop will occur till the time basically this entire list has been exhausted. OK, for example, for X in if I want to write, for example, for I in X. So X is my loop, X is my list, and then I do print I. So now what I'm doing is X is my list, that is this value, right? So I'm running a list. I'm running a loop in my list. And how I'm running it, I'm having a variable. For example, if I'll say for A in X, or for example, for Z in X. So this Z is nothing but it starts from the first position, 0 position, right? If I say that from print Z, right? So what it is doing? So print Z or print I doing the same thing. It is iterating each and every position of the list. So by that way, it will what it is doing? It is printing this value. Again, the loop is going back because again, it will need to check. Again, it is printing this value. Again, it going back. So if I do this, for example, if I put another print statement, print, let's say, so what it is doing. So for Z in X, so X is my list. Print the first loop is what it does. It print the first 0th position of it, and then it print this value as well. So it printing A, and then it print this one. Again, it go back and then print check the next position, which is Z is now what 1 position index number 1, and then it printing that value B, and then printing this one. Again, it is going back to the for loop, checking the position, printing the position, and then printing this value. Again, it go back and then see that now there is nothing. Now the list is exhausted. There is no value to it. As the list is got exhausted, what is happening? It is getting only printed till this. That means what? If you have a list of, for example, A, B, C, D, let's say D is also there. So it will also print D because it will again, it will go back and then it will print D. Again, it will go back when it will find there is nothing. It will not print anything. Right? Clear, everyone? For example, for I in X, print, let's say this, and then print the value. Print the value of I. So what it is doing first, it is printing this. Print the first value, if it is 0 position, then second position, third and fourth. Like this, it will iterate over each and every index of the list. So in order to print the list, in order to open your list, you can say that you will use for loops. And also for loop also can be used for many things. For example, I want to I have a string, and in that string, whatever I want to print each and every letter in its position, right? For what I'll do for letters in, for example, Nokia. So what it is doing, it is finding letter in this position 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 like this, and it is from this string it is evaluating. Now it will print, for example, if I do print of letter, and it will give us each of the value Nokia, right? So 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you can do each and everything. You can print using loops while accessing your basically the index. OK, for example, now you want to print an interface. OK, you want to print an interface. You will write a loop for I in, for example, range of 10. Now you want to print something called as you want to generate the configuration. OK, so what I'll do over here, I can say that configure router interface. Let's say interface name is I can say that route RTR router, and then I can give a value to it, and then I'll say I position, and then I'll use format. Under the format will have I. So I can do this one, right? 0. So what it is doing? So I have a range. Range means it starts from 0 and ends in 10 minus 1, the value minus 1. So it starts with 0 and ends with 9. If I have 11, then I can print up to 10, right? So what I'm saying is for I, which starts with what zero value. See, it starts with the 0 value, and then it is printing till the range that we have. Similarly, I can also print the same way. If you want to print, for example, IP address, right? IP address 192.168.1.0, right? It will now able to print each and every IP address for me, right? 192.168.1.0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 like that. So what it is exactly doing? It is running a loop in the range, what number that you specify. It starts with 0 and ends with something like whatever you specified for. Either you are giving a list by which it will getting end, or you are giving a value by which it will at the end of it. Similarly, you can configure, for example, you have a VLANs. And that in that VLAN, you will have 10, 20, 30, 40, right? You have 4 VLANs. And now I want to print those VLANs in VLANs. So what I'm saying, VLAN, that the position of value 0, 1, 2, 3, it will run like that in VLANs in the list that I am specifying over here. OK, and then you will say that print. And in the print, you will say you can configure some, for example, VLAN 10, VLAN I, right? So you can say that VLAN this, which is a 0 position dot format, and then I'll give the value here as I. OK, so what it is giving me now, right? So it is giving me VLAN 9.
It should be VLAN.
You should put VLAN instead of I, right?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. OK. Right. So what it is doing here, it is giving me the VLAN, printing all the VLANs to it. And then further you can configure your own VLAN details. For example, again, the second statement, I can put it as print. And then I'll say that what is the name of the VLAN? For example, VLAN underscore the name of it, which is 0 dot format and then VLAN. So I'm creating creating a configuration like this. So you can also create a configuration by this respect. OK, so similarly, when we have these values, we can use these values, and based on these values, we can iterate each and every position to it, and then we can put it accordingly. And we can create the configuration from that. This is for the list, right? Similarly, this is for for example, a range command. We are running a loops inside a range command. For example, we have something in dictionary. We have a dictionary, and in that dictionary, and for second is OK. Let's talk about like we have two values to it, right? We have one is your VLAN 10, VLAN 20, VLAN 30, VLAN 40, right? And we will have IP addresses as well. IP, and then we can have like 192.168.1.1. We'll have 192.168.1.2, for example, and then we'll have 192.168. 10.1.1.1. So you want to specify the VLANs, the IP address. So what you will do? So in this case, we have two. We have a VLAN list, we have an IP list, or you can fetch this information from for example, from the Excel sheet or CSV file, right? And then now I want to create a configuration. It can be 100, it can be 100 as well, right? So now I want to create a configuration in such a way that VLAN 10 will get the IP address of this, VLAN 20 will get an IP address of this, VLAN 30 will get an IP address of this, and so forth, right? So here I'll run a command, right? Run a for loop inside for loop, because I'm working with two lists now. So for I in VLAN, and then I'll say that I'll have a print statement to it. For example, print the VLAN, and then 0 with this. So VLAN first value. And now I can again go back and work for X in IP. And then what I can do is I'll do a print IP address, and then we'll have the IP address of 0, and then we'll do format of IP. Format of X, what is that? X. Here we'll have format of I. So what we are doing here, we are having an I for the VLAN and for X for the IP. So this is what loop inside loop, right? So loop inside loop, what we are doing is we are